When a person finally realizes how much of their suffering is self-inflicted, how much of their distress is born not from events, but from their judgments about those events, something inside them shifts. They begin to understand that their peace was never stolen, it was surrendered. Their attention was never kidnapped, it wandered. Their mind was never controlled, it was simply left unguarded. And in that moment of clarity, the person sees the truth that has been waiting quietly behind all the noise. The mind is only pulled by the strings you allow to remain attached. If you want freedom, you must cut them. There is a certain weight that comes from being tugged in directions that do not belong to you. The world is full of hands reaching toward your thoughts, full of voices eager to shape your emotions, full of forces that attempt to twist your reactions. Some pull with fear, some with praise, some with expectations, some with guilt, some with the illusion of reward. But none of these strings hold any real power unless you give them your permission. You were not born with them. You tied them yourself, thread by thread, over years of habits, assumptions, and unexamined beliefs. And because they were added slowly, you did not notice how tangled you became. To cut the strings that pull your mind is not an act of rebellion against the world, but an act of loyalty to your own inner strength. It is not an escape from responsibility, but a return to the only responsibility that truly belongs to you, mastery over yourself. The mind is like a fortress that has left its gates open for decades, allowing anything to walk in: complaints, fears, insults, praise, desires, regrets, impulses, worries. Closing those gates is not cruelty, it is protection. It is not indifference, it is wisdom. If you want a life that is directed by reason rather than reaction, you must reclaim the authority of your own mind. Most people do not realize how little of their thinking has been chosen deliberately. They speak because others expect them to. They react because old habits push them. They worry because they believe worry is proof of care. They chase distractions because silence feels unfamiliar. They allow emotions planted by others to grow roots, as if those emotions were their own. They let criticism define them and approval inflate them. They become like puppets dancing, shaking, stressing, performing, without ever examining who is holding the string. The first step in cutting these strings is becoming aware of them. Notice the moments when you feel pulled rather than guided by your own principles. Notice when your peace collapses simply because someone else says a careless word. Notice when your day is derailed by something insignificant. Notice when you act not from intention, but from impulse. Each of these moments reveals a string. Each of these moments is a mirror showing you where your freedom leaks away. Some strings are woven from fear. Fear of disappointing others, fear of not being accepted, fear of being misunderstood, fear of losing status. Fear has a peculiar way of disguising itself as responsibility or humility or even love. But fear is still fear. It contracts the mind, narrows your choices, and makes you reactive. When fear holds a string, you behave not as you truly are, but as you think you must be for others to approve of you. Cutting this string does not make you reckless. It makes you honest. It allows you to act from clarity rather than anxiety. Other strings are made of desire, the endless craving for more recognition, more comfort, more control, more certainty. Desire convinces you that peace lies just one step beyond what you already have. It whispers that happiness is somewhere in the future, waiting for the right achievement, the right possession, the right circumstance. But desire is a string that moves you endlessly forward without ever letting you arrive. Cutting this string does not make you apathetic. It makes you free. It allows you to enjoy what you already have instead of being enslaved by what you lack. There are also strings made from the past. Memories that hurt, mistakes that haunt, regrets that linger. These strings remain attached because the mind revisits them repeatedly, replaying what cannot be changed, feeding energy into what should have been released. The past has no hands, yet it pulls you as long as you hand it the rope. Cutting this string does not erase the past. It places it where it belongs, behind you. The lessons remain, but the weight is gone. Some strings are disguised as obligations. They appear as duties to others, commitments to roles, or pressures from expectations. But not all obligations are genuine. Some are merely inherited patterns, assumed responsibilities, or self-imposed burdens. Freeing the mind does not mean rejecting every duty. It means distinguishing between what is truly yours and what is simply noise. When you cut the strings that pretend to be responsibilities but are actually chains, you become more capable of fulfilling the responsibilities that actually matter. Then there are the strings woven by emotions that were never examined, anger that rises too quickly, sadness that lingers too long, envy that blinds, pride that distorts, shame that suffocates. Emotions are not enemies, but when they operate without understanding, they take control. They pull the mind sharply, erratically, and powerfully. Cutting these strings does not mean suppressing emotions. It means mastering them. It means stepping back far enough to see them clearly, to understand where they come from, and to choose your response rather than being carried by them. What is left when all these strings are cut? You are left with what is yours alone: your character, your principles, your choices, your reason, your will. The things that cannot be touched by fortune or opinion. The things that remain steady whether life rises or falls. This is the core of true freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you desire, but the freedom from being controlled by things that do not deserve to control you. There will be resistance. The world is accustomed to having access to your mind. When you reclaim that space, some will misunderstand. They may accuse you of being distant or cold or uncaring. But peace is always misunderstood by those who are still ruled by chaos. Do not let their confusion become another string tied around your thoughts. You owe no one an explanation for protecting your mind. The person who guards their inner world does not owe the world an apology. Cutting the strings requires discipline, and discipline begins with presence. You must watch your thoughts as they arise, examine them, question them. Ask, is this mine? Is this useful? Is this aligned with the person I choose to be? Most thoughts will falter under this scrutiny. Most impulses will dissolve. Most worries will reveal themselves as illusions. What remains will be small, but it will be yours. And that is enough. There is strength in being unpulled. A person whose mind is not yanked by opinions cannot be manipulated. A person whose peace is not dependent on circumstances cannot be shaken. A person whose actions arise from principles rather than pressure cannot be corrupted. A person who has cut the strings is not empty. They are whole. The world tries to attach new strings every day. They come through news, through gossip, through noise, through comparison, through the pressure to react immediately. To maintain your freedom, you must repeatedly cut what tries to grow back. This is not a one-time act, but a way of life, a constant returning to yourself, a continual sharpening of awareness, a daily choosing of what deserves space in your mind and what does not. Whenever you feel overwhelmed, it is usually because too many strings are being pulled at once. Too many voices have gained access to your inner room. Too many expectations have been allowed to clutter your path. In these moments, stop, breathe, step back into yourself, and begin cutting. Cut the string of what you cannot control. Cut the string of what does not matter. Cut the string of what steals your peace. Cut the string of what distracts you from your purpose. You will notice something remarkable each time you cut a string. The world does not fall apart. The thing you feared losing loses its power over you. The approval you once chased becomes irrelevant. The worry that felt unbearable dissolves. The past that once held you loosens. The noise that once overwhelmed you becomes silent. What remains is clarity, so sharp it feels like breathing for the first time. A mind free from strings becomes a mind capable of deep thought, calm judgment, and deliberate action. It becomes a mind that is no longer pushed but guided, no longer tangled but aligned, no longer scattered but centered. This is what it means to take ownership of yourself. This is what it means to be sovereign over your inner world. Every person has the capacity to reach this state, but few make the effort. Most prefer the familiarity of being controlled by external forces rather than the responsibility of controlling themselves. But if you want a life of peace, strength, and freedom, you must choose the harder path. You must choose to cut every string that pulls your mind away from who you are meant to be. You are not here to be controlled by opinions, fears, or impulses. You are not here to be a puppet for circumstances. You are here to use your mind fully, to direct your life with wisdom, to act with clarity, and to remain unshaken by anything outside your control. You are here to be the one who holds the strings, not the one who is pulled by them, and so begin the work. Cut the strings patiently, mercifully, relentlessly. The mind that is free, truly free, is a fortress no external force can breach. It is a light no darkness can extinguish. It is a power that belongs only to you, waiting to be reclaimed the moment you decide to stop letting anything else pull it. To continue this work, you must also examine the subtle strings, the ones almost invisible because they blend into your identity. These are the beliefs you never questioned, the assumptions passed down to you, the standards you accepted without examination. These strings are the most stubborn, not because they are strong, but because you do not see them. They express themselves quietly. The pressure to always be productive, the need to be liked, the insistence on winning every argument, the belief that suffering gives life meaning, the fear of being ordinary, the idea that rest is weakness. These are illusions that hide beneath the surface of your mind, yet they shape your decisions more than any external force. Cutting these strings requires honesty with yourself, a willingness to confront the parts of you that you have protected with excuses. There is a moment in every life where the mind begins to tire of its own chaos. Not a dramatic moment, not a crisis, but a quiet fatigue. A sense that the noise has become too loud, the expectations too heavy, the distractions too frequent. In that moment, the mind whispers a truth it has held all along. This is not who you are supposed to be. You are not supposed to be pulled in 1,000 directions. You are not supposed to live in reaction to everything around you. You are not supposed to spend your days defending your peace rather than living from it. That whisper is your invitation to reclaim yourself. When you follow that invitation, you realize that peace is not a gift from the world, but a discipline of the mind. The world is full of storms, but storms cannot shake what is anchored. The world is full of noise, but noise cannot distract what is focused. The world is full of pressures, but pressures cannot dominate what stands firm. The strength you seek is not in resisting the storm, but in refusing to let the storm lead you. When you cut the strings, the storms still come, but they no longer drag you with them. You will also discover that the mind becomes lighter with every string removed. A person often thinks they are exhausted because life is heavy, but most of the weight they carry comes from strings they did not need to accept. The need to prove something to others, the habit of revisiting old wounds, the constant comparison to people whose journeys have nothing to do with their own. When these strings are cut, energy returns, focus returns, purpose returns. It becomes clearer what deserves your attention and what is simply draining it. And yet, the work is not only internal. The world around you must also be filtered, not by shutting yourself off, but by choosing wisely what you let in. You must learn the art of saying no to the unnecessary, the art of refusing the invitations that lead you away from your values, the art of stepping back from conversations that steal your clarity, the art of walking away from situations that pull you into disorder. This is not withdrawal, it is refinement. A mind that is constantly pulled cannot think deeply. A life that is constantly interrupted cannot follow its purpose. If you want to live with strength, you must create conditions that allow that strength to flourish. One of the most deceptive strings is the need for immediate reaction. The world encourages you to respond quickly, to messages, to opinions, to problems, to emotions. But wisdom does not move at the pace of urgency. Wisdom slows down. Wisdom observes. Wisdom waits for the fog of emotion to clear before choosing a direction. When you cut the string of impulsive reaction, you discover how powerful silence can be. Silence dissolves anger. Silence exposes manipulation. Silence reveals truth. Silence gives the mind space to choose rather than simply respond. Every moment you remain silent instead of reacting is a moment you cut another thread of control. Another string that must be cut is the belief that your worth depends on how others perceive you. This is perhaps the strongest string of all because it is tied to your identity. But consider this: how many times have you changed yourself, softened your truth, hid your strength, apologized for your boundaries, just to avoid disapproval? How many times have you allowed someone's misunderstanding of you to dictate your behavior? The approval of others is a fragile foundation on which to build your life. People change their minds constantly. Their judgments are shaped by their own experiences, their own fears, their own limitations, not your reality. When you cut the string of needing approval, you do not become arrogant, you become authentic. A free mind does not chase validation. A free mind does not fear rejection. A free mind does not crumble when misunderstood. It stands rooted in truth, because it knows that truth does not need an audience. Truth simply is, and the person who aligns with it becomes unshakable. Cutting the strings also means accepting that you are responsible for your inner state, not others, not circumstances, not luck. You. People may provoke you, but you decide how long you hold the provocation. Life may injure you, but you decide how long you nurse the wound. Circumstances may challenge you, but you decide whether they define you. The moment you take responsibility for your inner world, every string begins to weaken. You stop blaming others for your reactions. You stop expecting the world to behave gently. You stop waiting for things to improve before deciding to be steady. You realize the mind is not a victim, it is a tool, a powerful one, but only if you wield it consciously. There will be tension between who you have been and who you are becoming. The old version of you was attached to many strings. These strings had become familiar, comfortable even in their discomfort. When you cut them, the old self may resist. It may try to pull you back toward the predictable patterns of distraction and reaction. This resistance is natural. Growth always creates friction within. But if you remain patient, the old self weakens with every intentional choice you make. You do not escape your past by fighting it, but by outgrowing it. And cutting strings does not mean isolating yourself emotionally. It means connecting without attachment, caring without losing yourself, giving without demanding, loving without clinging. It means engaging with the world from strength rather than dependency. The person who has cut the strings can still feel deeply, but their feelings flow like a river, instead of trapping them like a swamp. They love without fear because they do not fear losing themselves in others. They care without exhaustion because their care comes from abundance, not desperation. They walk through relationships without chains because they remain anchored within themselves. There is a calmness that arises when nothing external has power over you, a calmness that cannot be replicated by comfort, luxury, or even success. It is the calmness of alignment, of being the same person in chaos and in peace, of not needing outcomes to justify who you are, of not needing praise to validate your decisions. This calmness becomes a shield, not because it blocks life, but because it helps you move through life untouched by the storms that once shook you. When you cut the strings, you do not become passive. You become intentional. You do not become cold. You become steady. You do not become detached from humanity. You become immune to chaos. Your actions become more effective because they are no longer clouded by fear or desire or insecurity. Your decisions become clearer because they are grounded in values, not emotions. Your path becomes straighter because you are no longer being pulled off course by every passing opinion. You will begin to notice a shift in your behavior. You stop rushing. You stop over-explaining. You stop arguing to win. You stop clinging to what is fading. You stop chasing what is running. You stop seeking through others what must be found within. You discover the strength of letting things be, of letting people reveal themselves, of letting situations unfold, of letting go instead of holding on. This is the natural result of a mind no longer tied to strings. And yet, the greatest challenge is consistency. Cutting a string once is easy. Keeping it cut is the real work. You must guard your attention as you would guard something precious. Because it is precious. It shapes your life. What you allow into your mind becomes the environment in which your thoughts grow. Protect that environment carefully. Do not let just anyone plant seeds in your mind. Do not let just anything occupy your mental space. If someone's presence pulls you into chaos, step back. If a certain habit weakens your clarity, remove it. If a particular thought breeds suffering, question it. Discipline is the blade that keeps the strings cut. Your life becomes simpler as you remove what pulls at you unjustly. Not easier, but simpler. There is a difference. Easier is the path of avoidance. Simpler is the path of focus. Easier avoids discomfort. Simpler accepts discomfort without letting it dominate. Easier seeks pleasure. Simpler seeks purpose. When you live simply, you live aligned. Alignment is where strength grows. It is where peace grows. It is where resilience becomes effortless. Not because life stops challenging you, but because you no longer challenge yourself with unnecessary burdens. And as clarity grows, you begin to see that very few things in life truly require your attention. Most of what pulls at your mind is noise, temporary, meaningless, irrelevant noise. If it will not matter in a month, it should not control your day. If it will not matter in a year, it should not control your heart. If it will not matter at the end of your life, it should not control your mind. Cutting strings is the art of prioritizing what is eternal over what is temporary, what is real over what is imagined, what is within your control over what is not. When your mind is finally free, life does not become perfect. It becomes manageable. It becomes clear. It becomes yours. A freed mind begins to move with intention instead of haste. It stops rushing toward outcomes and starts focusing on actions. It stops seeking control over the unpredictable and starts mastering what is within its reach. It stops giving energy to illusions and starts grounding itself in truth. This shift is subtle at first, but it transforms your entire experience of life. The person you used to be, the one who reacted to everything, the one who feared disappointment, the one who chased external approval, slowly fades. In their place emerges someone steady, deliberate, clear, unmoved by the turbulence around them. You start to experience a new kind of quiet. Not the quiet that comes from an empty room, but the quiet that comes from an uncluttered mind. A quiet that is not fragile or temporary, but solid, like a mountain standing unmoved in the wind. It is the quiet of understanding your place in the world, the quiet of knowing what matters and what does not, the quiet of refusing to let anything external determine your internal state. This quiet becomes the foundation of your strength. As you continue cutting the strings, you will confront moments of discomfort. The mind has been conditioned to find familiarity even in dysfunction. The old patterns will try to return, not because they are right, but because they are known. You may feel uncertain when you no longer seek validation. You may feel exposed when you no longer hide behind fear. You may feel unfamiliar when you stop playing roles you were never meant to play. But this discomfort is not a sign that you are lost. It is a sign that you are finally stepping away from the illusions that once trapped you. Every time you resist the urge to react impulsively, you weaken a string. Every time you choose truth over emotional distortion, you weaken a string. Every time you walk away from unnecessary conflict, you weaken a string. Every time you remind yourself that the opinion of others is not the measure of your character, you weaken a string. These small acts accumulate. They build the inner authority you were always meant to possess. Soon, the person you become is one who does not depend on circumstances for peace. Peace becomes something you carry with you. Something you create through discipline, something you maintain through clarity. People will notice the difference. They may say you seem calmer, quieter, more grounded. They may misunderstand your stillness as detachment, but they will feel the strength in your presence. A person who has cut their strings carries a kind of quiet certainty that cannot be faked. And yet, cutting the strings does not mean avoiding life. It means fully engaging with it, but from the center rather than from the edges. It means facing challenges without collapsing into fear. It means loving deeply without clinging. It means working hard without losing yourself in ambition. It means speaking truth without needing others to agree. It means walking through difficulty without letting difficulty define you. With every string removed, you participate in the world more authentically, not less. One of the most liberating realizations is that you do not need to respond to everything. Not every comment deserves your energy. Not every insult deserves your reaction. Not every challenge deserves your participation. The world will offer you endless opportunities to be pulled off balance, but you are not obligated to accept any of them. Cutting the strings means choosing your responses carefully, reserving your strength for what truly matters. The person who reacts to everything owns nothing, not even themselves. Life simplifies itself when you stop fighting battles that do not matter. You will find that many conflicts resolve themselves when you choose not to engage in them. Many insults lose their power when you choose not to absorb them. Many problems shrink when you stop feeding them with attention. This is the power of intentional focus. You do not conquer the world by controlling it. You conquer the world by controlling your mind. In time, you begin to see that the only true string that ever mattered was the one tied between your actions and your principles. Everything else was noise. Everything else was illusion. When you cut the strings of fear, desire, insecurity, pride, and expectation, you finally see the simplicity of your existence. You are here to live with virtue, to act with reason, to speak with honesty, and to move through the world without being owned by it. That is enough. It has always been enough. From this clarity, a different form of strength emerges. Not aggressive strength, not dominant strength, but quiet, unwavering strength. The strength of presence, the strength of focus, the strength of someone who knows who they are and refuses to be anything else. The strength of someone who cannot be bribed with praise or threatened with criticism. The strength of someone who stands firm, not because they are stubborn, but because they are rooted in truth. Cutting the strings also reveals the true nature of freedom. Freedom is not the ability to do whatever you want. It is the ability to remain yourself no matter what happens. It is the ability to stay steady even when others lose themselves. It is the ability to act from wisdom even when emotions rise like a tide. It is the ability to choose your response rather than letting the world choose it for you. That is real freedom, and it begins the moment you stop allowing anything external to pull your mind. As you continue to refine your inner world, you will notice that your outer world begins to shift. Your relationships become clearer because you no longer cling to them for validation. Your decisions become stronger because they are rooted in intention rather than fear. Your conversations become more meaningful because you no longer speak to impress, but to express truth. Your path becomes more direct because you are no longer distracted by 1,000 unnecessary desires. This clarity will not eliminate challenges, but it will eliminate confusion. And clarity is more valuable than comfort. Comfort can be taken from you. Clarity cannot. Comfort weakens the mind when it becomes dependence. Clarity strengthens the mind because it becomes guidance. Many people live their entire lives seeking comfort, yet remain restless. Few seek clarity, yet those few walk with peace that does not break. A mind without strings becomes a mind capable of extraordinary resilience. It can endure loss without collapsing, face disappointment without bitterness, experience failure without shame, encounter difficulty without panic. This resilience does not come from hardness, but from understanding. When you understand what is under your control and what is not, you stop fighting the battles that were never yours to fight. You stop trying to control outcomes and instead focus on effort. You stop trying to predict the future and instead strengthen the present moment. You stop arguing with reality and instead shape your character. As this understanding deepens, life becomes less about struggle and more about alignment. You stop wasting energy resisting what you cannot change. You stop losing sleep over the judgments of others. You stop fearing failure because you recognize that failure is simply information, not condemnation. You stop fearing uncertainty because you understand that uncertainty is the natural state of life. And slowly, the mind that was once pulled in every direction becomes unified, whole, unbroken. That is the power of cutting the strings. You reclaim the fullness of yourself.